Welcome to Conflict Managed. I'm your host, Mary Brown. Conflict Managed is a weekly podcast about toxic work environments and how to fix them. We're glad you're here. Good morning, Bruce, and welcome to Conflict Managed.
I'm really happy to be here.
I know
Good
we're going to have
morning.
a great conversation about a whole host of things, and we're going to get to your new book and all the things that you're up to that helps people have better, healthier work environments. But before we get to that, I would like to hear about the first job you ever had as a young person.
Oh my goodness. I suppose you don't want to talk about mowing the lawns of neighbors and things of that nature. I would say, honestly, I would say the first real job that made impact on me was working at McDonald's
Mhm.
at 17. And it was a great training ground to work hard
Mm.
and within a team environment. It was actually really fantastic.
What did you find fantastic about it?
It helped me pull out of a shell, right?
Mm.
It really, high school, I don't know, high school is high school, right?
Mhm.
You're either like one of those superstars or you're everybody else. And I was one of the everybody else, just lost in the masses. And I really was able to identify with the people around me and find my identity
Mm.
um, as an individual and really see how individual contribution made a difference.
Mm.
Uh, I got to shine on my own terms,
Mm.
and that was really important for me.
That is so lovely. I mean, at fast food, it needs to be a well-oiled machine or there's oil
Mm,
everywhere and things break down so quickly. And so to move from that school environment that is really quite particular and you're being ushered along and you are there that team environment is not like it is in a workplace and specifically in something like fast food that is a
mm,
fast-paced environment. And so I love that
mhm.
this opportunity to learn about yourself and to see yourself shine. Um, and I imagine it sounds like it gave you a certain kind of confidence, self-knowledge that you didn't have before.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It was really amazing where, I made friends. I still have friends that that I made back then, which I find remarkable, right? Like there's high school people I don't talk to, but there's people that I worked with when I was 17, 18 that are still really close friends. And I find that completely fantastic. Yeah.
That is really fantastic because I think when we think about first jobs, sometimes the mentality it's a throwaway job.
Mm.
It's a nothing job or um even it's an embarrassing job or something where we get our start. But I think it's really quite the opposite. We learn
Mhm.
so much about who we are, what we want and what we don't want. Sometimes we have great environments and sometimes we don't, but it all
Yeah.
really if we're paying attention, it's such an opportunity to think about the next thing or what I want out of work and life, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, it was certainly great. And I was able to measure my next couple jobs against it.
Mm,
And there was a couple jobs that were just really isolating,
mm,
even as a young person, trying to find your space. Uh, some places were really just isolating. And I'm like, yeah, this is not what I want.
mm.
And I still had no idea what I did want. I just started learning what I didn't want, which was
Yeah,
just as important, right?
I'm
Yeah.
100%. Yes, absolutely. So what did you major in college?
Ugh. A lot of things. I couldn't figure out, yeah, I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. And I'm up here in Canada, so we played around with CJEP in college, right? And so I started with pure and applied sciences, biology and things like that. Realized that really wasn't where I should go. Started then tapped into psychology and realized I started analyzing far too much of myself and the people around me and how my sister was raising her children. And like it's just like, okay, uh, I'm going, this is a rabbit hole I don't need to go down. So got away from that. And then in the end, business and economics with a strong interest in English literature. So, and that's where actually made sense to me.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so that's sort of that's what university was all about, was business and economics with a flavor of English lit.
It also sounds like that still spirit of experimentation, of finding what you don't want. Like maybe like the sciences, I think a lot of people think, oh, this is what I need to go into for some particular reason. Who knows, and then you
Mhm.
try it and it resonates or it doesn't. And then that is a nice thing about what I think college should be, or trade or whatever you go into, is this opportunity to try a variety of things to find.
Mhm.
Because a lot of times you don't know if you don't know. And college can expose you to all these different sorts of possibilities and even within yourself, what you thought you would like, but what you actually like. So,
Mhm.
what did you do after college?
So after college, university, when I was in university, all I wanted to do was work for a big bank, and
Hmm.
that was my big goal. And I was lucky enough to have summer positions the last couple of years where I did work for a bank. Really low, work, like nothing mind-boggling at all. But it got my foot in the door, and that's all that mattered. And really, like it was like I was working up at the Visa Center or the Cash Management Center, and uh, and even though it was like a really, entry level kind of position, it allowed me to for me to get a sense of what the inside of a bank looks like. And this was, of course, at the corporate level, not at the branch level. So from the business side of banking, it allowed me to sort of see what the world looked like from the inside. And again, let me know where might I want to be. But at the same time, it allowed me to um, uh, identify myself in the bank. So people started recognizing who I was, and I didn't appreciate that at first, how
Mhm.
important that was.
Mhm.
But I started when I came back the second year, people were actually saying, "Hey, Bruce, we want you over here," and it wasn't because of what was in my brain. It was my work ethic that people were tapping into. And and I appreciate that now. I completely did not appreciate that then. But yeah, it was working for one of the Canadian banks up here. And I stayed with banking for 11, 12 years and did some remarkable, like really, I'm so proud of some of the stuff that I ended up doing. Like I was part of four people that launched debit for the bank that I was working for in Canada, and like that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That was kind of cool. Yeah, it was pretty neat.
I like your reflection about showing up and the work ethic and invisibility. I think that is really undersold, even in this world of LinkedIn and visibility. And, so in your sort of social spaces, but then in your work spaces, you're not going to be thought of for the next thing if you're not being thought of. And you're thought of because you're there, and you're thought of well
Mhm.
because of how you're showing up, right? And so we just show up, we're doing our work. We don't really realize how other people are interacting with us or how they are looking at us. But that's one thing that I would just love for younger people to see, that you're making your next steps, like all the way up the line by how you're showing up today, no matter how you,
Absolutely.
and that, even though it can feel like the day in and the day out, but that kind of stability, that kind of what we see somebody doing in the day in and the day out, and their reliability speaks so much, because you said it's not in your brain. I'm sure you have a lovely brain, but so much of that, the mechanics of most jobs can be taught. But are you teachable? Are you reliable? Are you easy to work with? Are you fun to
Yeah.
work with?
Are you fun to work with? Yeah. Are you creative? Are you a go-getter? Are you a problem solver? All those fun things. Absolutely. And I think I really strongly agree with your point of it being important for younger people to tap into that awareness. In our world, where we have flexible workspaces, right? Hybrid workspaces, and there's a lot of that. And personally, I think it's fantastic. I think it's important. I think it helps people be three-dimensional and dynamic, and allows people to be able to support their families in different ways. But one of the challenges that I see as we go back into the workplace and is that there's a lot of people who say, hey, well, for 4 years or 3 years or 2 years, I worked remotely 100%. I want to keep doing that. Like I've just proven that I can do my work. And they are absolutely right. The challenge is, and this goes especially important for younger individuals, it's hard to be seen when you are looking only through a screen like you and I are experiencing right now, where if you're in the office 2 or 3, maybe even 4 days a week, you get exposure in so many different ways. So people get to see you working differently. They see you being creative. They see you, are you fun, right? They see you at lunch or going for a coffee. So they see you in, I keep going back to that three-dimensional perspective. They see you really importantly as a whole person. And the other thing that's really important is that because you're there, things happen. And if you're there, they can go, hey, Bruce, can you come into this meeting? Right. And that impromptu experience can be a really important learning experience, resume experience, right? That that you can use for years down the road.
Absolutely. I think, when we think about what our career is versus just having a job, and that's what it strikes me as, well, I can get my job done. Well, maybe no one's disputing that you can get your job done, but it's this long-term vision. But what about your career? What about where you
Mm,
want to go and how do you get there? And mostly we get there through networking. Mostly
yeah,
we get there through, as you just said, getting all these experiences. But because we are spatially located and we are embodied creatures, and this is just the way of things, that
yeah,
it really does matter, this interaction that we have with one another. It's not to mean like you and I can have this wonderful conversation, but if we were to have this extended sort of work relationship, it is just so different than if you were down the hall or in the next floor up, and I could say, "Oh, that Bruce is here." I can go up there, or I can call him, or I could call him down, or you're there's just something about the fact that we are embodied creatures and proximity
mm,
really does matter. And relationships, um, so my former life, I'm a philosopher, and Aristotle talks about friendship. And for him, friendship is true friendship has to do with proximity because when you are not physically located next to the other person, you don't get to live your life with that person. And I think that's very similar in business. You're just not thought of because I see, like I physically see you or I hear you or whatever that is, and I just think that gets lost in this discussion of I like being home.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I truly believe it's very, very important. I I think of a friend of mine. I met. I was invited to their Christmas party last year, and their daughter was there, and their daughter is like uh, early early 30s, and was talking about her work. And she had been with this company for about 18 months, and she was talking about she was 100% remote. Her interview was remote. Everything was completely remote. And she talked about her work like I talk about vacuuming, right? Like there was no spark, there was no interest. It was just like I just, rubber stamp things kind of thing. Um, and I just think that's really unfortunate,
Yeah.
and all it might need is um, one day in the office a week or 2 days in the office a week, right? Or maybe not even that. Maybe it's like once a month. or once every 2 months come in for 3 days and have a shared experience. I think that's really important.
Yeah. I also think it probably matters what kind of work somebody is doing and what their career
Mm,
goals are. Some people want to they don't care so much about what they do. They just simply want to pay the mortgage. And
mhm.
absolutely, that's absolutely
That's
fine
okay.
if that's what you want to do. And so remote work where they're not going in and they are filing those claims and that is the kind of life that they want to live. Then I think that's absolutely fine. But the question
Yep.
is, what is it you want? The thing is, this person who thinks maybe they don't want to change careers or they may think that because they haven't been exposed to other sorts of possibilities. They haven't been exposed to and made those connections. I mean, that's possible. But if we
Hmm.
think about, I mean, back to the McDonald's, like if we can help people think about their first job as the first rung in their career, and everywhere you go, you are making yourself, like building your own self-confidence and your own mantra about who I am and what my work ethic is, and showing everybody else, and that just continues to build and build and build. And so is this particular job where I might like that I'm working remotely, 100% remotely, but is that in my best interest in the long run? What is it that I
Mm,
want? And
mm,
is this getting me there? Now, of course, there are life circumstances. There are, work from home. You know, I, I just think it so depends on the person, the work,
yep.
the environment,
Yep.
as to what is the best for that person and the best for the organization.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's so many aspects of this because I truly think that what you tap into is right. Like uh if your priority is your family, as an example, and that requires you to be at home at 100%, like hybrid work environments or remote work environments are really great. We have technology like what you and I are using right now that really helps us go a little extra, that extra distance. And we can still build a relationship.
Yeah.
It's just if you're looking at trajectory, if you're looking at building and moving up I hate to say it, but the ladder, if you're looking for that expansion, it's so much more challenging in this environment than it is in an in-person environment. And that this, is that in-person environment just is always going to add something to
Mhm.
the equation.
I think about it like when I was in college and I would look up a book that I was interested in and maybe the card catalog or something like that. And then you go to the library and I go to take that book off the shelf. And then all of a sudden I'm looking around and I see all the other books. And I don't
Mm,
pick that book. I pick this one over here. And then I see, oh, these books over here. That it had to do with this proximity, right?
right.
And
Yeah.
so, while I love the internet and I love researching online, I also know that there are certain things I'm not going to see because of the way I set up the search. I don't see the things that are around it.
Yeah.
Now today I could ask AI, but then I'm going to get, AI's what's around it instead of going and
Yeah.
see. And I do. So I think there is that of the loss of proximity that I don't see what everybody else's normalized work, right? So like what I think is
Yeah.
normalized has to do with my family of origin, how I went to school. And so I might think something's normal, but when I'm seeing how other people are coming in and leaving, how they're showing up, just like physically, like what they're wearing and what their hours are and how like, the vibe from, I mean, you can definitely get a vibe from, what we're doing right now. And I also like that you said that you can really make long, durable relationships online, but they're probably
Mhm.
going to be like, fewer of them
Yeah.
because of my
Yeah.
brother-in-law has worked fully remote, I don't know, 10, 15 years. And he's an engineer and the kind of work that he does, they have a team meeting every morning to assess what they're doing. And so he's got all these really good work relationships. So I think it can happen, but he's like, I think it's easier when you have been in the game for a long time and you know what you want. I think it's going to be harder when you're just starting out.
Mhm. Absolutely. I totally agree. It's yeah, I love what you were sharing, like the library. right? And seeing all the books around you, right? I've always thought of like maybe this talks about my sweet tooth, but I talk about going into a candy store, right? And hey, if I'm only going in for one candy, I can buy that online, no problem. But if I go into a candy store, whoa, right? Like I'm coming out with something pretty like bags of stuff, right? Yeah, absolutely. And it's that choice that we and that exposure that we're able to intrinsically and gently find that I think allows us to explore, sometimes really softly, right? We know, "Oh, what's going on over there, right? And you decide whether you want to get closer to that thing or not, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's yeah.
Yeah. I was reading some of the stuff that you have written, and I came across something, a blog that you wrote, and I want to read this line too. And I just think it's
Oh,
be brilliant, and I want to talk about it because I think you're 100% right. But I'm going to read this, and this is on. It was from August 18th, 2021. If anybody wants to look this up, and it's called "Being Aware of Our Emotions at Work." Being aware of our emotions at work is important, part one. And you say the old idea of increasing productivity and market share by making work controlled. I'm trying to read my own handwriting here. Predictable and repetitive is no longer valid. Instead, a controlled, predictable, and repetitive workplace often means falling behind.
mhm,
And I was thinking about fairness at work and this idea of making the rules and everything else the same that applies to everybody the same, this sort of sameness, this sort of industrial revolution, like we got to standardize everything.
mhm.
But we're working with people. Can you talk a little bit more about this idea?
Yeah, I think like there's certain places, if I'm building a car or if I'm building an airplane, I really want we need that standardization. But when we get into the world that is like the other 95%, whether you're in trades or whether you're in an office, everything that I see is moving so quickly. Everything is changing so quickly. We need to make sure that we're always moving ourselves forward, whether it's ourselves as individuals, ourselves as teams, or ourselves as organizations. We always have to be exploring and expanding our knowledge, which means um, uh, learning new things, hearing new ideas, and staying away from that standardization. This is how we did things. This is how we do things, right? And so we need to make sure that we're growing. And I think our policies should actually be swinging to to that exploratory mindset, that growth mindset, as opposed to our policies contracting us into little boxes. There are certain policies that need to be in place. Absolutely, no question. There's certain things that are acceptable and certain things that are not acceptable. And that is fantastic. But I really think that we should start creating policies that encourage growth and expansion and having fun for that matter, right? That we should really look at that and take a look at people's individuality, right? You were saying earlier, the some people from a workplace perspective might thrive in a remote space, right? Because of family or some physicality that might exist. They might simply be better working remotely. Well, let's make sure we're giving them all the resources that they need, that we're enabling them as much as we possibly can so that they can contribute creatively and thoughtfully and to their best of abilities. Um, yeah, I just think that we really, I think every workspace should look at creativity as one of their fundamental goals.
Such a wonderful, elegant way to put it, creativity as a goal. And, when we think about change, we know that the one thing that's not going to change is that everything's changing, right? And so you implement some new software, you implement this new thing, and then it's like we're always trying to get to that set point. Like, okay, we got to do this new thing till we get to the normal. I think the expectation is that okay, then nothing is going to change, right? And I understand that from a human point of view because we want stability. We want to to be able to predict what's going to happen. And um, so I think that you can give people confidence and stability in one way, right? Just like you said,
Hmm.
there are some non-negotiables we're going to have at work. We've got to follow the law when it comes to how we treat people, but then we can do more than that and about acceptable behaviors, and we can have some. But then to expect flexibility and to expect creativity and to put that into the work environment to help people with the inevitable change. And so if we tell people in organizations we've got to change, 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 but these personnel policies are set in stone, it's like this,
Mm.
like, well, what are we doing? So when it comes to me and what's important to me and how I'm going to flourish, those are non-negotiables, but you're constantly asking me to be flexible because of the market, because of this, because of that. But if we encourage like everything, well, most things, anything that can be, we're going to be flexible. And we want people to
Hmm.
be creative. So if you need this thing, but I don't see how it's possible, well, how can it be possible? Let's create
Hmm.
together, which I think
Hmm.
increases engagement, productivity, shared thinking and dialogue with one another. And I think can get away from this. What I hear a lot with the work I do is that's not fair. This person is getting something that I'm not getting. And so one person's fair, all right, this is really tough for managers and leaders. They're like, well, what do you mean? I'm as fair as I can be. But battling that belief that I'm not being treated fairly because somebody else is getting something that I'm not getting.
Right. Yeah, I think we I think we as leaders need to do a whole bunch of different things to help my what's the word, to minimize that. That's because that whole equality versus equity thing is really big, right? Of course.
Mhm.
Um, and so there's a few things that are bubbling up in my head around what you were sharing. First, I think I don't like the word change, right? I started using the word evolve, right? And because I think change, to your point, change has always been we change and then we coast. We change, then we coast, right? And that coasting point has got either really, really narrow or non-existent. So so that's why I like sort of the evolution mindset, where if I go into my workspace and my team or my company is thinking that we have to continuously evolve, then that creates a different environment for people to be thinking through. So that's one aspect that I use in my work is to try to stay away from that change word and start using the evolve word. Um, so that's one aspect of it. The other thing that I really look at is what are we measuring, right? Because if I'm measuring productivity, right, and I'm uh, measuring people's contribution and how proud they are of their work, instead of you gave me three things or you came in at 9 and you left at 5, that kind of stuff. If I'm able to create a culture within my team that says we are all going to be individuals, right? I don't have a family, you do. You have young children, I don't. You need some flexibility around taking care of your older mother, right? Whatever that flex, like you live really far away, I live next door in the condo. If we're able to say, okay, we are all individuals and able to contribute in our best way, how do we make sure that we're contributing in our best way? Right? And it might be that, hey, I'm best at 7 o'clock in the morning, so I'm going to come in really early and I'm going to leave at 3. Well, you know, then rock on, right? Let's find a way in our team that that can work, right? So maybe it means that we establish that all team meetings have to be between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock, right? And that's just one of the things that we figure out. But we really figure out how people are able to be their best as opposed to how people can fit into our existing mold, right? Because the mold that I like when I first started working at the bank, it was an 8:30 to 5 kind of with a tie, right? I haven't worn a tie in I can't even remember the last time I wore a tie, right? But there was a suit that you wore, right? And that was acceptable and it was okay. Well, it doesn't work like that anymore, right? Like the rules from 30 years ago just don't work. So let's throw away all of that, or at least say, you know, these boxes don't work for us. What kind of sieve do we want to work in, right? And I think that's so much more helpful. And I think everybody is able to be happy with that. Yeah, because you get to measure against what makes you feel proud and full as opposed to what somebody else is getting.
Mm.
And I think
Yeah.
that's so much more helpful.
When you said, like what people were doing 30 years ago or some other time and checking boxes. I think about packing things up and moving, right? And so we put things into a box and then we put it like I right now I'm in the process of cleaning out my attic. It's something that's been on my mind for years. I'm actually doing it. I'm so happy. Um, and the other day I pulled out something from my wedding and I was married in 1995. It was a stack of napkins and tulle that was like on the aisle as you went down and some other sundry things. I'm like, that has been in my attic since I moved in this house in 2003, right? And then I've had it since before then. And it's just all this sort of stuff that we collect that we don't even know that we've
Mhm.
collected. And
Mhm.
I think at work, ways of being, especially the longer you are, because you have more experiences, and the way the mind goes like, well, this is what is normal, this is what should be. But again, it is this, in a way, putting work in these like the should be boxes instead of the very evocative evolving, right? I agree. I mean, I'm probably going to still use change because it's an easy word to use, but change,
Mhm.
just because you're changing, we all know it doesn't mean for better, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
evolving does denote better because we can talk about de-evolving, right? We're going backwards or something. But this evolving language, and we know language is very important of thinking about being better tomorrow than I am today, and whether that's personal and what I'm learning and my work relationships, meeting my goals, meeting the organizational goals, but this idea of going towards something and evolving instead of staying in the past. But the
Mhm.
past is very important for us and is very informative. But the
Mhm.
question is, are we living in the past or are we
Mhm.
living presently with our eye towards what is next? And so
Right.
I'm interested in generational differences at work, and I think that you are too. How do
Mhm.
you see some maybe best practices to really have this engagement and this belonging in multi-generational organizations?
I think it starts with conversation. The more uh, I don't. So my experience is, whether you're 55 or 25, a guy or a girl, whether you're from Canada and the States or somewhere over in Europe or Asia, we really are very similar in what we want. How we get it might be different, right? Some of our experiences around that thing might be different, but fundamentally, all of us want to be proud of the work that we do. We want to be respected and safe. We want to we want to feel like we're contributing, that I'm making a difference, right? And whether I'm making a difference and my work doesn't change a whole lot, or whether I'm making a difference and my work does change a lot, doesn't matter, but you're making a difference, right? So there's a whole bunch of things and I talk about these in the book. There's a bunch of things that you and I are naturally, intrinsically driven to want. And if we're able to create workspaces where we look at those things around pride and contributing and have conversations around how do we create a team environment that supports these things within the team and within ourselves. How do we have conversations that support these things within the team, within ourselves? How do I measure Bruce at the end of the year and give him a raise against these things, right? That's how we create wonderful environments that are multi-generational, multicultural,
Hmm.
right? Then having to go back to that static, this is what we are kind of thing. I think that is, if we look at the things that intrinsically inspire us, that's where we're able to create fantastic teams that are dynamic in what we do, but also dynamic in the people that are contributing.
I 100% agree. I also think that when we have those multi-intergenerational conversations and we think about our own work and what it is that we want to achieve, when we get to hear those different generational perspectives, it can also help us think about what it is that we want and have new ideas, whether it's someone who's younger than us, older than us, someone who's even around the same age, that more that we have dialogue, the more it increases our own sight and our own possibility, therefore, what it is that we might do. Because I might not have thought of something as valuable because I just haven't thought about it.
Mhm.
Or I may not have thought about what I'm doing and how I think it's just normal, but maybe I haven't thought about the impact because of um, where I am in my career or in my life or who I'm taking care of or not taking care of, right? All these things that you've
Mhm.
already articulated. So you mentioned that you talk about this in your book. So let's talk about your book. Congratulations, that just came out.
Thank
It's
you.
called The
Thank
Path of
you.
an Inspired Leader. So tell us about it. Tell us about it, what's in
Sure.
it, and how it came about.
Sure. It's been something that I've been thinking about for a lot of years. So probably about 9 or 10 years about what I wanted to create as a book if I ever got a chance to do this. And I do a bunch of writing, the blog posts, of course. And I finally got the opportunity that a publisher and I connected 2024, and we agreed that we would work together on this. So it's been a really exciting project. I wanted to create a book that allowed people to instead of reading it from front chapter to end chapter, I wanted people to be able to dive in whenever and wherever they need it. And so every chapter talks about something different that a leader might encounter, right? Like, how do I hire somebody? How do I have a difficult conversation with somebody? How do I create a values statement for my team and with my team, right? So every chapter is uh, many of the experiences that a leader would have to do. So instead of just saying, hey, here's a theory, go apply them, I actually gave them scenarios in which they would apply them. And not to make somebody absolutely a perfect person at hiring someone or having a difficult conversation, but giving them enough information to get them 80% of the way.
Mhm.
And then they would have the confidence to take a first and second step, but also have the confidence to apply their own personality and culture to that equation, right? And that's what the book's designed to do, right? So the path of an inspired leader, it's not my path, it's the reader's path, right? So it's that is what I created and getting some really remarkable feedback from it. So I'm very pleased about all of that.
Oh, that is wonderful. And I love the layout of the book because as you were talking, I was thinking the first thing that came up to me is like encyclopedia. Like, when you are reading an encyclopedia or something like that, you don't start in the beginning or a dictionary, start in the beginning and go all the way through. And that can be a barrier. Someone thinks, well, I do want to learn about have a difficult conversation or how to hire well. But now I got to start in the very beginning and read through the whole
Mm,
thing. But to think, oh, I can just open to this one because it's what I'm going through right now, and I'm gonna get some really practical, helpful information so that I can now go do, right? I hear what you're saying, which I'm very interested in, is the practical application. How is this going to help me? Right. When I talk about conflict management, I try to say, I'm not going to, it's irrelevant how I solve conflict. It's what about you? Is this going to work for you?
mm,
And how is it going to work for you? Because if it doesn't work for you, you won't be
yeah,
doing it. Right. So
right.
finding that, that's really, that's great. I think that's obviously people have been, it's been resonating with people. And that's a great way to write a book that's accessible. You can read it from the beginning to the end, but then you can
Absolutely.
also then just jump in wherever you want because there's something that you want to look at.
Absolutely. And that's really what I was hoping, and I'm very proud of it. I think anybody that writes a book is very proud of what they accomplish. But I like the idea that somebody could say, oh, there's a situation there, close their door, read 8 pages, right? And that's really like the longest chapter, I think, is 12 pages, right? Or
Mhm.
something like that. But like, hey, read, like, give me 10 minutes, read, and then put it away and walk out again, not with the PhD in that topic,
Mhm.
but knowing, hey, I have the confidence and a few tools that I can go into that meeting or into that conversation and and feel like I can contribute and 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 be safe and and be okay. Like I can be okay. And again, I can talk about the book for days, but the neat thing I think is also cool is that it's the same voice, it's the same values based all the way across. So you might read hiring skills and then put it away for a month and then have to have a difficult conversation. You pick up that chapter, and it's the same. It's not a
Mhm.
translation from one author to another. It's
Mhm.
the same values based and language that I use throughout the book. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, that is wonderful because some books it's very some books are anthologized, and so you've got a bunch of different authors who are talking about a bunch of different things, and that's very valuable as well. But this one way of thinking, a particular kind of voice, especially if it's resonating with you and you're trying it out, then that also builds a kind of confidence because the way that we think and how we take in information that can that consistency can really
Yeah.
help pull the threads together so that as we lead, as we go about in our work, we are able to find that for ourselves and that voice and that consistency that we're able to apply it in this particular kind of way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about conflict. And what about you as a young person, a younger, in your career, how did you deal with conflict at work and has it changed over the years?
Sure, absolutely. And I was, just to put a pin in it, I come from an English Irish background, which kind of means that you never talk about conflict, you never talk about problems, you sweep everything under the rug until the rug gets so large it explodes, and you know then it's just a mess, and then you just start sweeping things under the rug again. So as a youngster and in early in my career, I dealt with conflict really poorly because I had no ability, I had no resources, and I saw difficult conversations, uncomfortable conversations, as conflict. So as an adult and especially with the work that I do now, I see conflict as being something really small, where I expanded my definition around challenging or difficult or uncomfortable. So instead of thinking that any feedback starts with that idea of conflict, I like to set an environment around me where feedback is actually intended to be safe and supportive and to give me choice as opposed to you know um, uh, me being mean or not understanding or all those other things. So I have sort of in my life and in my work, especially because I do difficult conversations training, I like to redefine some of those expectations
Mhm.
and start by saying, hey, let's first create an environment where we are safe and trust each other, that when I share something with you, it is for your and our best interest, not ever blame.
Mhm.
And I want you to do the same back to me. So you invite it back at you, right? And that creates a level of duality and trust. Now, you have to build that trust, you have to build that over time. But I like to, right out of the gate, start there
Mhm.
and say, hey, I'm going to give you some feedback from time to time, and it's meant to make you and us better. Do I have your approval? And as soon as, right, and then you start building your relationship from there. But yeah, I see, if I don't have those challenging conversations or those difficult conversations on a regular basis, or when they arise, they will eventually become conflict.
Mhm.
And conflict is is hard, right?
Mhm.
Conflict is is messy, and there's a lot of hard feelings, and it's just messy. But I think we can avoid that 9 times out of 10
Yeah.
if we just have honest, trustworthy, accepting, awkward conversation, right? And and that's how I love to live my life that there.
Right.
And I can actually laugh with most of my friends and coworkers around those awkward things and resolve them,
Mhm.
right? Um, really easily. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That just resonates so much with me. I think the time to have a difficult conversation with somebody or to start that process is before there's a problem, right? As you just said,
Hmm.
setting expectations and deciding if you want to have, if you want to be able to have fruitful, difficult conversations whenever they arise, the need arises. That means that you need to be this really intentional leader and you need to set those expectations. And when they see you coming, are they seeing the principal coming down the hall? Are they seeing a partner? What are they seeing? What is that relationship, as you said, to build it, right? And so a leader, as you well know, doesn't have it because they say it. They have it because of what they've done day in and day out, how they have built those relationships.
Hmm.
And I also agree. I say early, often, swiftly, and justly. Let's deal with
Hmm.
it because if you deal with it right away, then it doesn't grow and bloom and blossom into, these things that happen at work, these tensions, these breaks and trust, the gossiping, the factions, all of that conflict it can be dealt with one way or the other. Sometimes people have to leave. Sometimes organizations fold because of it.
Yep.
It can be
Yep.
dealt with, but it is so much. Once trust is broken, once we have these entrenched narratives that have been going on for 6 months, 2 years, 10 years, that's really tough. You can be dealt with if a lot of things, but it's so much
Yep.
easier on the front end if after
Yep.
that meeting, when somebody talked over you or didn't have what they said they were going to have, or whatever it might be, if you said it then, set expectations, decide what we're going to do forward, and then it gets fixed. So many things
Yes.
can be fixed, or we can part ways with people sooner where people are left intact. They are left intact, and you're left intact, and the other people in the organization we're all better off.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much to that. Absolutely. Like there's I love your example of, being talked over, because that happens all over the place. Like it happens so often. And so many people don't realize that they're speaking over other people, right? But that builds in the individual. It can actually build in the whole team, right? If I'm always speaking over you, there might be people on each side of me that are actually where tension is being created. But if you're able to have that conversation and say, hey, Bruce, I don't know if you realize it, but I want to share a story with you. I want to share my perspective with you and what I experienced, because I can't uh, push against your experience, right? I can't say that your experience wasn't right, because your experience is your experience. It might be you didn't intend for me to have that experience, but I still had the experience. So if I can share what my experience is, and again, keep it out of blame, but keep it to information,
Mhm.
then I say, hey, this is my experience, and I would love it. I would really like it. I would appreciate it, whatever your language is that's authentic to you. I would really appreciate it if I was able to finish the sentence, if we didn't speak over each other, because I really want to hear what you have to say. And I would really love it if I had that same opportunity. Can we go there? Like, can we get to that place? And there might be some stumbles along the way, as expected. Like, I'm not going to become perfect tomorrow, but I might be able to become 80% or 90% in a couple weeks or whatever, right? So it's being able to have that conversation and and like you said, in advance, share the expectation, and if I can share that expectation, I don't have to be perfect. All I have to do is say, hey, this is my experience, and I really hope that we can come to something else. That invites you to now experience their experience, right? Because we have to realize if I'm having an experience, they are also having an experience. And how cool is it for me now to be open to their experience
Yeah,
and hear, right?
right.
That is what creates really strong, trusting environments. Because if you and I believe, if you and I can go through a conflict or a difficult situation, that only brings us closer together,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
That builds our trust, it builds our relationship, right?
yeah.
Instead of pushing it against. Yeah.
It's such a great example because if I don't speak up and this person continues to
So,
talk over me, then the narrative I've spun is that person only cares about themselves. That person is thinks they're the best. That person doesn't trust me. That whatever. I'm building a narrative because why else would they be harming me? Why else are they acting this way? And we don't know why the other person is doing that. They may have no idea. They may think, oh, we're
mhm.
working as a team. They may be uncomfortable with the work that you're doing and they're trying to save you, or they
Right.
may, who knows?
Yep.
And so when we're experiencing this pain, we end up assigning negative motives to the other person.
Mhm.
But if we could right away, which means that it's everybody's job to speak
Yep.
up because nobody's a
Yep.
mind reader. If I'm
Yep.
talking over you and you don't speak up, I'm either don't know it's happening, I don't know it's a problem, and so I'm going to continue to do this, right?
Mhm.
Because I don't know. So that means that everybody has got to advocate for themselves in the right way, at the right time, professionally, in this de-escalated way. As you said, we're exchanging information. And I'm not venting. I'm not saying,
Uh,
Bruce, you did this and you made me feel this. And how could you do this to me in public? What are you supposed to do if I come at you like that? I mean, I might be
yeah.
feeling that way, but work conversations are not the place to be doing that. We can
Yep.
do that before we get to this person that we need to have this awkward or difficult conversation with.
Right. Absolutely. And I think if we are in a space where we can have those awkward conversations, those difficult conversations when they exist, we'll never get to that boiling point,
Right.
or rarely get to
Right,
that
really, yeah.
boiling point, right? Where you have to create challenge and tension and nastiness. Um, and the thing is, and the bottom line to all of this is, I want I want to invite people in to have that conversation with me as an individual, even if your workplace isn't supporting a lot of this actively, you can, as an individual, go in and say, hey, to the people that work directly with you, perhaps, I want you to do this for me, right? You don't need to say, I'll do it back to you. If they say yes, right, then fine. But I would like you to give me this information when you see this happening. If you see me talking over someone, if you see me, whatever, give them the open slate to say, hey, Bruce, this is what I see. Did you mean this? Invite them to do that. Because in the end, can you imagine? I think I'm being great, using that, saying with that other example. I think I'm being great. I think we're being collaborative. I think it's exciting. We're all contributing. You feel you're my boss, right? Or my coworker, and you feel I'm talking over people, that I'm being rude, that I'm being disrespectful. I have to think about my career, right? My brand. I think I'm being fantastic. Everybody around me thinks that I'm being rude and insensitive. When it gets to become a promotion next year or the year after, I might not get that promotion because everybody around me thinks that I'm being bossy and self-centered. Meanwhile, I think I'm being fantastic, right? It can be a career limiting move not to invite this kind of feedback into your orbit,
Mhm.
right? So I'm all over, hey, tell me when I can improve and give me the choice, right? Because if I don't improve, if I don't change and I keep that perspective up, hey man, that's all on me, right? That's all on me. But if you don't even give me the choice and I still have a career limiting experience, that's not fair.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times we don't speak up because we would want to hurt somebody's feelings. And I live in the South, and there is this. The South is a wonderful place to be, and but there is sometimes a shellac, like we're just going to plaster on the smile. And of course, it's not just the South and the States that's like that. But
Yeah.
really, clarity is kindness. Speaking up is kindness. It's kindness to yourself
Hmm.
too, because the question is, I don't want this little bit of pain now. But guess what you're going to get? You're going to get a whole lot more pain every time you're in a meeting with that person, because
Yeah.
if they've done it more than once, it's some sort of pattern that is, and so you're going to even get more entrenched. So choose your pain a little bit now, a lot later. Um,
Hmm.
and and who do you want to be and how do you want other people to show up around you? So do you want to invite it in? And also, do you want to do the hard thing of saying to the other person? And that is scary because we don't know what is going on with the other person. Are they going to emotionally be able to handle it? Are they going to kill the messenger, it's you, you're the problem. We're not in charge of other people's responses, but we
Hmm.
can be in charge of ours and how we've built our relationship before the conversation, how we
Yeah.
show up in the conversation, because we're inviting them in. So we're holding the space, we're deciding
Yeah.
to de-escalate ourselves. And if they
Yeah.
go up, we can still modulate ourselves down. We can take breaks. We can control all of that, but it's a skill to learn and to
It is.
practice.
It
Um,
is.
but everybody can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I love about difficult conversations that I find it remarkable, again, my background was my background was full on avoidance, right? I would run screaming from a room. Actually, I would run silent from a room, right? Uh, rather than have that conversation. and and now it really is empowering, I think. But it gets back to, hey, I'm not going to blame you for what I'm experiencing. I'm just going to share what my experience is,
Mhm.
and that helps people not get triggered as badly.
Mhm.
Is, hey, I just want to share what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling, as
Mhm.
opposed to when you did this, right?
Mhm.
Kind of stuff. And when I
Right.
push blame onto people, it really sort of softens that experience a
Absolutely.
lot, and it helps people, you know, get into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a nice and it's a great way to start those awkward or difficult conversations. So,
right.
Bruce, this time has gotten away from us. So, I've got this last question for you, which is, as you look into the future of work, what do you think needs to happen so that not only will all people be treated with dignity and respect, but that people will be encouraged to thrive and flourish?
Sure. I believe that uh, we have to get really good at first understanding what the environment is that we want to work in. What is the
Mm,
culture that we want to work in? So, what does safe, transparent, respectful conversation or environments look like? And then I think we have to build uh, an environment where, like what we were sharing earlier, where we all expect to grow, or we all expect to change, that we all expect to evolve. So our work is going to evolve and we're going to evolve. So tomorrow is going to be different, right? And then we have to have a really clear idea of what our vision is, right? Knowing that that vision might adjust, but here's what our vision is for the future today. So for the next year, this is where we're going, right? And our values are the thing that we can trust. The values are the things that we can trust of each other. So having a really clear understanding of all of that before we even get into doing the work, right? So really taking time to decide what we want for our team as or our company as we move forward. And then we start thinking about, okay, how does that apply to our work? And unfortunately, we do the reverse,
Right.
right? We think about, okay, what we have to do is push out these forms and these papers and this, whatever. Uh, and oh yeah, and we'll tap on this culture thing, right?
Right.
Um, and I think if we do the reverse, it makes it so much easier for our multi-generational, multicultural experience, right? It's the one thing, that vision, that that shared environment is what's going to make us fantastic. And I've seen that happen. So people that I've coached in very bureaucratic environments say, okay, well, my company is not supporting that. But what I'm going to do with my team of five, I'm going to apply it to my team of five. So I'm going to have that conversation with my team, and we're going to move. And I've seen teams completely transform, even though the place around them isn't. So it's, yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. If we, I just 100% agree. If you don't know where you're going, right? So we need to know what this is culturally. What is it we want? What did we want it to feel like? What did we want it to be like? And
Mm-hmm.
then we arrange the work. But if we
Yeah,
do it the other way, this is like,
hard.
it's sprinkles on top or something like that. This nice to
Yeah,
have. It is not. It is essential about
essential.
how it feels like what it is in
Yeah.
work to be there to
Mm-hmm.
get what we want
Mm-hmm.
done. Well,
Yes.
Bruce, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. And listeners, I encourage you to go out and get The Path of an Inspired Leader. It sounds fantastic. And thank you so much for being on Conflict Managed.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's great to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. And take care. Bruce, you and I are definitely on the same wavelength. I love what you are up to and how you're doing it. And thank you for writing this book. I really do appreciate how you have laid it out so it's accessible to find the thing that you need to find when you are in the circumstance. Because even if you read a whole book, then, we read lots of stuff or we take in a lot of information, we can forget where it's at. But to have a book laid out so that it's just really easy to find the thing that you need at the time that you're dealing with it. Conflict Managed is produced by Third Party Workplace Conflict Restoration Services and hosted by me, Mary Brown. You can find us online at 3pconflictrestoration.com. Come back. We have new episodes every Tuesday. And if you would like and subscribe wherever you were listening or watching this podcast, that's much appreciated. And if you haven't had a chance to check out my latest book, which is called Winning the Generation Wars at Work, Making Your Age an Asset, it is available on Amazon. Our music is courtesy of Dove Pilot. And remember, conflict is normal and expected. Let's deal with it. Until next time, take care.